for a period of time, I was like really feeling like I had to catch up to be an expert in healthcare, in the fertility space, in the pregnancy space, in the maternity space. I had learned the subject matter, but in healthcare generally, I really felt the need to catch up. And one day I woke up and I realized like I should embrace the fact that I don't know. And I think we need in healthcare more people coming in. It needs to be a more inviting space where it doesn't feel so dense and foreign just because you don't know the acronyms and this thing and the claims process. I think having a beginner's mind and coming in with curiosity and excitement and imagination around the art of what is possible. I can't think of an area of the world that needs it more now than healthcare.
This is Inspiring Women. I'm Lori McGraw, and I am speaking with Tammy Sun, and she is the founder and CEO of Fertility, which is one of the prominent companies in this space of women's health. You've been doing it for a number of years. Tammy, I really appreciate you being here on Inspiring Women. We're at the Nashville Sessions Conference in this really cool, podcast booth here in the fishbowl of the conference. Let's just dive right in. You are an incredibly accomplished executive. You've done so many things over your career, but how long has it been with Carrot?
So we are closing down our 9th year since we launched the product. So we're almost on our 10-year anniversary.
They say that it takes 7 to 10 years to launch an amazing company. I think that you started that at year 4, as I recall, the birth of Carrot years back with the state of women's health today, because we had such a, set of years where it was like, okay, great, we're going to start getting new funding. We're going to talk about women's health. We're going to invest in research. And then the world seems to have changed recently. So where are we, Tammy?
Well, I continue to be an optimist, and I think that women's health is going through a number of evolutions, many that are important, and I think will make the category stronger over time. Certainly when I started the company about 10 years ago now, this category was barely a blip. I mean, you remember probably.
It wasn't a category.
You had to
define it.
We were constantly trying to convince people why it wasn't, and this is sort of VC lingo, a lifestyle business, or like a niche business. And so I think that question over the last, 7 to 10 years has been asked and answered affirmatively, that this is a huge category with massive tailwinds. And I think that is fundamentally still true today. The things that propel this category forward in terms of the place of women at work, the demographic changes, the age at which people, both women and men, by the way, are starting and expanding families, getting older. Those things are long, and they are, in my view, permanent. And I think, as you know, in order to build large, successful, enduring companies, we will go through lots of periods of political and economic change. And I think we're in one of those periods now. I have spent some time in Washington, D.C., and as well as at various state levels. And the good news is that when I talk to leaders in Congress, in other branches of government, on both sides of the aisle, there is a lot of consensus that women's health continues to be an area of priority. And if anything, the biggest change that I have seen happen in the last 10 years at the federal level is how much this issue has entered the national conversation and become a policy priority on both the national and international stage. As you know, we're global as well. And so, there's a lot of disagreement on different policy issues in healthcare in Washington. But I think one of the things that has remained the same is every single person I have talked to continues to think that IVF is an important medical treatment that more people need access to, not less. That women's health is something that is a huge priority, particularly maternal health and addressing our maternal mortality crisis. And so there's a lot of good good things to work with, and I continue to see strong consensus.
Before it was a category, when you started near a decade ago, and people did consider it a lifestyle business, things have dramatically changed in the United States in terms of the number of people who are having babies, the number of people who are having new issues in terms of having fertility issues that are out there, and that has become a national conversation. Let's just go back a little bit. The origin story, the origin story of Carrot. Is the why of what you started, how true or different is it from what is happening nationally today?
It's the same. It's talked about in different ways with different language and different players and different voices, but it is fundamentally the same, which is that, infertility as a crisis, infertility as a disease or subclinical fertility is something that is increasing in prevalence across the population. So, 1 out of 6 opposite sex couples now confront infertility. A lot of experts think that number is actually underreported and underrepresented, because it really only counts the number of couples who show up at the clinic seeking care. If you can't access that care, if you can't afford that care for some reason, oftentimes financial, you won't be counted in those numbers. And so the prevalence rate is going up of infertility. And at the same time, we see lots of other individuals and couples looking to take care of their fertility health, be proactive about their fertility health. Same-sex couples are looking for ways to build and expand families. And I think our understanding of fertility has actually grown, particularly over the past couple of years, so that it encompasses women's health. I mean, my personal story came from a personal fertility experience, which sort of inspired the company. But at the same time, I think we're taking a really important look at men's fertility and men's health as well, and the role that men play in this space. Half of all infertility is related to male factor. And so I think it is in the service of the family, it is in the service of women, for more men to become educated, to empower them with products and services and with tools to take responsibility for the benefits and the challenges of engaging in this area of healthcare.
Tammy, if we look at the trend lines, and people talk about, the decline of babies being born. And so that's representative of this. And just for myself, I have a daughter, I have a granddaughter, and
Impossible.
Impossible, I know, but I do. And she is pregnant again. Yeah. I'm very excited. Interestingly to me, we're out shopping for maternity clothing, and there are no more maternity stores. Those days are gone. And it's partially because, and I talked to a number of people about it, is because the decline in the population of children being born is real. So what are some of those trend lines as infertility is increasing, awareness is increasing, but yet funding is, we're at a problem place in terms of the funding that's coming to this space. So sort of square those circles for us.
From a funding perspective, one of the most important things that has happened over the past 10 years to, I think, really support the trend in terms of people building families is funding from the private sector, right? The private sector and employers and plans are very much on the front lines of healthcare in this country, on the front lines of healthcare innovation. They have poured billions of dollars into expanding access to this care. So that's on the private side. When it comes to the trends and the fertility rates, the fastest growing fertility rate of people having more babies, women having more babies, is actually in the 40-year-old plus category.
Okay.
Every other demographic is actually flat or decreasing. And thankfully, we're seeing a decrease. Thankfully, we're seeing a decrease in teenage pregnancies as well. So that's also a good thing. But we are seeing these really long trend, important sort of tectonic changes in how people conceive of family and build their families. And I do think that a very significant portion of that trend is sustaining, which means that we will see more areas of infertility pop up in more communities and in more families. And I think one of the things that we're working on is really empowering and educating people much sooner than the time that they get to the fertility clinic to really help them understand what are the different things, what are the different ways that you can improve your fertility health, prepare for pregnancy, whether that's 3 months or 3 years down the road, and empower couples to do that together.
How is the education working then? Is that happening at companies? Is that happening with physicians? What are you advocating for? Where does it show up?
So we're very complimentary to the physicians. The physicians are incredibly busy. And I think one of the things that they have really appreciated about Carrot members who walk into the clinics is that they are already educated. So doctors aren't sitting down for an hour and doing some of the basic, work around education. We do a lot of events with our employer customers and our plan customers, but really is on a one-on-one level with individuals and their families. It's incredibly culturally competent. It's incredibly localized in terms of language. In some countries, families and in-laws will participate in this discussion. And in other places, it really is the woman on her own, and she may or may not want to bring her husband in. And so it is really personal, and we find that education and empowering people with that information is really the first step in helping them make what is actually a better clinical decision as well. So whether it's twins are adorable. I'm sure there's some twins who are listening to this podcast, but twins are a high-risk pregnancy, in this country. And so whether it is, helping people understand why multiple births is riskier for mom and baby, or factors related to male fertility health, and making sure that the man is also engaged in testing, et cetera, so that the woman isn't subject to potentially more invasive procedures than she would need to. These are all things that are done inside of our platform and are highly personalized.
Yeah. So Tammy, you are an absolute expert in the space of fertility. I mean, you've been leading the charge in terms of Carrot Fertility. Again, we're a decade into this nearly. And but it is no small joke to build a company from the ground up. So when you started to where you are now, you're in how many countries are you in? You're
almost 170.
almost just,
started with 12.
So
it's been a walk.
Let's just talk about where is the company? What was the hardest year so far? And how are you doing now? Are you more optimistic than ever? Just like a little bit of the growth cycle there.
I mean, I think the hardest, people, this is a real issue in terms of venture funding and dollars allocated towards women founders and female founders. But, the hardest $1 million I ever raised was the first $1 million.
Yeah.
Everything after that certainly wasn't easy, but it was definitely the hardest, that initial activation energy to find the believers and those who had sort of a similar conviction about where the world was going. And when I started, I wasn't a professional founder. It wasn't like my third company, or I wasn't a founder looking for a company. I was a founder who, sort of the mission had found me, and I was trying to express the best way for me to sort of change the future in the sharpest way and in the shortest period of time. And the company was like the tool to do that. And nobody prepared you for the rejection, you don't know. You walk in, you don't know. So I really hope that, if there's women founders listening to this, it's like, it's totally common to pitch 100 times and get rejected 99
or more,
99
or
of them.
more.
Yeah. So I think that period was very difficult. And you're looking for your first investors, your first team members, your first customers, and all of those are your founding employees, your founding customers, your founding investors. And so that was hard.
Let's pause. Let's pause for a second, Tammy. So the statistics, and I'm just going to review them with you.
Yeah.
Okay. So the number of female founders that are out there, it is growing, but the amount of investment that's going to female founders is 2.4%. It actually has declined.
Has gone down, yeah.
Again, 2.4%. Okay. So we're talking really small numbers. You did it your first company. Those numbers go up when you have a male co-founder. You don't have that. You are the founder of Carrot Fertility. And most young companies, there's just a handful of years that they make it before they transact into something else. You have built Carrot Fertility despite all of these odds against you in terms of the pure numbers. Did you know what you're doing? What in the world makes you so exceptional? This is amazing, Tammy.
I had no idea. I should have called you, Lori. In the early days, I didn't know what an HSA was. All the acronym HRA, HSA, HDHP, ERISA. I really had to learn all of that. And for a period of time, I was like really feeling like I had to catch up to be an expert in healthcare, in the fertility space, in the pregnancy space, in the maternity space. I had sort of learned the subject matter, but in healthcare generally, I really felt the need to catch up. And one day I sort of woke up and I realized like I should embrace the fact that I don't know. Mm-hmm. And I think we need in healthcare more people coming in. It needs to be a more inviting space where it doesn't feel so dense and foreign just because you don't know the acronyms and this thing and the claims process. I think, having a beginner's mind and coming in with curiosity and excitement and imagination around the art of what is possible. I can't think of an area of the world that needs it more now than healthcare. Mm-hmm. And so I do think that sort of flipping that naivete on its head and thinking like, okay, I don't know, but how do I take advantage of the fact that I don't know to sort of think about it as a blank slate and try to draw something new in the world?
Yeah. But as you've done that and grown the company, as we all know that, being a CEO, being a founder, we don't all know it personally, but we know it is a lonely job at the top. And you've built something incredible. It's an incredible brand. It's a well-known and very established company in this space. So as you've done this, and you can be enormously proud of that, you also are a builder. And I know that you have your sights on something more and even grander. So what are you looking at in terms of the next 10 years for Carrot?
I mean, we're really excited that the category has really expanded to be more than this single point of care in the clinic where you are coming to the clinic with a crisis of infertility. That will continue to happen. That is an incredibly important point of care to consider and build products and services around, and we continue to do that. But we think that fertility care and family care is really lifelong. Mm-hmm. And so a couple of years ago, we launched a perimenopause and menopause product, which we call post-reproductive fertility care. That became our fastest growing product ever. And, I'm sure you know this, menopause has really sort of come into the conversation as a first-class citizen, and people are taking it seriously, not as a disease, but as a phase of life and a change in a condition that more than half the population will go through. And so we are also really thinking about, in the other direction, well, what can we do to help women, to help couples think about their fertility before that crisis moment? And so, we have recently launched a product called Sprints, which is at the nexus of what we call metabolic fertility care. Obesity is one of the fastest growing drivers of infertility, causes of infertility. There are very few clinical causes of infertility. Smoking is one of them. Mm-hmm. Age, as we know, is one of them. And obesity is another one. And so obviously the country is in a very large obesity crisis, one that is growing. And so really thinking about what are we able to do in our platform to engage members, to optimize their chances of becoming pregnant without an IVF procedure. I mean, that would be ideal. I mean, every woman I talk to wants to avoid it if it's possible. But certainly once you go into that IVF procedure, increasing the success rate and making that as successful as possible.
So, Tammy, your expertise is just like coming through in everything that you're talking about. I want to turn the conversation a little bit to you. I've done all my research in terms of your work and everything else. I understand that you are one of these 24/7, always on consumer of incredible amounts of information and making sure that you are current and also leading there. So how do you just like show up at work? Are you really a 24/7 person? What's important to you?
I am, and I'm not super proud of it. I try to evangelize a little bit more of a balanced approach, but
Look away.
you
Look at
caught me.
someone else. Look at someone else.
But it is, it is inherent in sort of just who I am. I have a specific cadence and a speed, but I do think that, it is, I am lucky in that I am deeply curious about our space.
Yeah.
Like I maintain a deep curiosity about what's possible. And sometimes I actually try not to get too in the weeds on something. I'll have an instinct that I should pull back because I really want to preserve that beginner's mind.
Yeah.
Some of that like initial sense of naivete so that we can work through sort of the art of what is possible before you sort of get too familiar with what the architecture of a thing really looks like.
So what's something you're learning about now that keeps your mind fresh and, that beginning learning state of something that's not specific to the fertility space?
I mean, I think one of the things that we're all grappling with that I've spent some time on over the last year is GLP-1s. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is just such an incredible drug.
Yep.
It is, I probably will be the fastest growing drug of all time in human history. Maybe, I don't know. But it will affect every single thing in healthcare. And so I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed is learning with everybody else.
Yep.
And trying to sort of imagine the art of what is possible while everyone else is doing that as well. And the thing is that nothing in that category has really settled yet,
I feel like, remember that scene of just like, when the internet was being born, you've got Katie Couric. I remember having my own Katie Couric moment of asking, what's a GLP-1? I didn't understand the acronym yet. And like that time that Katie was just like, what is this internet thing?
Yeah.
It's like, it has been such an incredible, I do think we're only at the beginning of that. So Tammy, what else beyond work, science, and everything else that's not fertility related that keeps you energized and keeps you committed to what you're building?
We moved from California to Northwest Arkansas a few years ago during COVID. And at some point in the next couple of years, I realized I will come up to a point where I will have been running and building this company longer in Arkansas than I did in California. And it was meant to be just a temporary kind of COVID move. And we ended up really loving it. Now I live down the street from my sister and my nieces and her family and everything. So we've got 2 dogs. And so it's really nice being in the middle of the country. I've always lived in New York. I've always lived in California. And it has just been a really delightful experience in ways that I think I didn't expect, and in ways that really do fill my cup. And so it's a trade-off. There aren't a lot of direct flights to places like Nashville, and so I'm constantly passing through Chicago or Dallas. But it's definitely worth it. It's fantastic. Highly recommend.
Okay, middle of the country.
Yes.
Here we all come. So Tammy, as we close out this inspiring women conversation, I don't mean to fangirl you too much, but truly you are an inspirational leader. You have built something important, and you have done something that very, very few women have done. And so I just like you to reflect on that for a second, and just where you are now with all that you have accomplished. What is your advice to earlier stage entrepreneurs, women founders that are out there? They may still be naive. They probably have many more resources available than when you started out, but it's still hard out there. And it is going to become harder as funding takes its own sort of life cycles. What do you advise to earlier stage founders?
I think I get questions a lot from women founders about imposter syndrome. I don't know if you get that as well in your role. Do you feel it? How do you deal with it? How do you deal with it? And I think it's really important not to let that idea live in your head as a thing that you have to deal with. Mm-hmm. You don't have to deal with it. You can ignore it. You can totally ignore it. You can pretend like imposter syndrome doesn't exist, and you can just act the way that you feel like you should act. I think one of the things about imposter syndrome is that if you feed it too much, or if you give it too much energy, or if you spend too much time trying to think about, oh, how do I deal with this thing that's in the room, rather than just putting it in the corner, making it sit down and then ignoring it, is that it actually does grow bigger and you start having a lot more self-doubt. And I've certainly gone through periods of that in my life as well. And I have really found that the best way to deal with something like that is literally just pretend that it doesn't exist.
I think that's great. The conversations about imposter syndrome do drive me,
Drives me nuts.
crazy. It's like, please, goodness, just
You're here.
Just throw it away.
Yeah.
Just throw it away. So I think that's great. So we'll close out this Inspiring Women conversation with that. Tammy Sun says, imposter syndrome, put it in the corner, throw it
Ignore
away.
it, yeah.
And Tammy, you are an incredible, inspiring woman,
Thank you.
and thank you so much.
So are you. I'm so honored to be here, and thank you for having me.